spent an inordinate amount of time trying to stay clean and keeping our clothes clean. I almost always had three pairs of socks hanging off my knapsack drying because they would never dry in time. Sunny Travel, you can see the logo. This group was a Nepali company run by a Nepali family whose daughter was at Columbia, had just been sent to Columbia at the time. We made contact with her. My daughter went to Columbia, and she actually fed my daughter and me supper a few months ago. We're still in this steep valley. We've climbed about 5,500 feet here. Getting a little affected by the altitude, not much. This is a little bit lower than Santa Fe. Pine woods we're passing through. This is called a chur pine. I'm looking at the guidebook trying to get the Latin names of these. Pinus roxburghii. The Latin name for this is cannabis. We're learning how to make hashish. Actually, we of course didn't touch this stuff. Didn't inhale. Actually, I mean, to be honest, I was, for most of this trip, so outside my comfort zone that it was not even tempting to stretch that. But I did have lots of Hendrix gin. Here's a rickety bridge to get a sense of the height. Look at the shadow down below on the rocks. It's a lot higher than it looks. Those are prayer flags hanging off to the right, blowing the wind. More rickety bridge. The cable had slipped off on the right there. It slipped off the support. But it was a long time ago because you can see the weeds growing. No prayer flags. You don't have a prayer if you fall across this. Geez, I guess the word is winnowing corn. The corn crop had been harvested and is being dried. And I'm with Barbie. Barbie has used her Polly to ask whether we can take pictures. And while she's asking the question, I'm snapping away from my waist, and she said, no pictures, please. Here we are. We've done our laundry. You can see the laundry drying on the left there on the corn stalks. There's Barbie hanging out first. Mine is in the foreground. That's that same village from kind of around the corner. It's right on a cliff. If you sleepwalk, you go right off the cliff. And that in the same village, looking up at the telephoto, the mountains are really right there. Prayer flags. Nighttime, we sat around in the tent. This is supper. The food was great. We were burning a lot of calories. Just one of the many stories. Mike there in the back was hired during the revolution, the Maoist separatist revolution, hired by the UN to come in and translate afterwards, and was translating for the victims. This was supposedly a peaceful overthrow of the king, and he had to give the stories told by the victims, survivors, and this, he said he couldn't tell the story until that evening, and was in tears telling it because he had to, as a translator, speak in the first person. I witnessed this. I was tortured. I went through this pain, and it was very, very difficult for him. This had happened 2 years before. There's actually an article in the New York Times about their revolution this morning, and talking about how difficult revolutions are, how long it takes for democracy to take hold. It's unusual. I just took this is the latter part of the main trail. That's my hiking shoe, lower left, and Bill making his way to the top there. Here are our porters carrying all of our junk. tents, potty tent, tables, chairs, tanks, propane tanks, everything we carried with us, and we carried all the junk out with us. Since the revolution, there was a lot less, there was really no government presence through the mountains the way there had been. There had been a lot of checkpoints and checking the trekking permits and everything. That was all gone. It sure felt like the government just had consolidated in Kathmandu, and that was about it. River, across the river. 6,500 feet here. You can see a little bit of red splashes. That's amaranthus, we figured out, crops, which is sort of a weedy stuff, but if you Google it, they really say that it's going to be a food of the future. It's very high protein. It's used as a grain, although it's really fruit. Here against our group. Beth and Barbie on the right are in their mid-60s, and Barbie and Mike on the right in mid-60s, and Beth is in her mid-60s. Saul is 71 on the left, and Bill and me are the youngsters in our mid-50s at that point. This is a little town that we took an extra day to acclimate. These three boys had run out and seen us coming up the trail from far away and climbed the rock to watch us come in. There's the corn crop, and in the back you can see a haystack. Up on the left is a gompa, which is a little temple. That's us in the temple. This woman who's the assistant of the monk in charge has let us in. This is the monk's house. That's a little storage room. That door's out of scale. The stairs are in the correct scale. But these could be sort of American Indian influence, very crude living. So during that day off, we climbed 4,000 feet back down. Very exhausting, but they tell you to climb high and sleep low. Got us up into this alpine woods. You could smell the balsam fir and rhododendrons. This little stream was emptying the glacial lake up there. And I saw this trough. I guess it must have been for animal watering the animals. There's the lake. While we were eating our lunch, a little snow flurry came through and doused us with snow. Saul did not take that hike. He stayed back and sketched. Here he is praying into his hot water. We got these bowls at each of us every morning. At 6:30 in the morning, they would come toward the flap of our tent and say coffee, tea, and a little tray, and have our old coffee cup while we're still in our sleeping bags. And then a little later, they bring us our water bowl to do the washing in. This is cheap Chinese goods, factory irregular, sold to the Nepalese. I should say Honda. From this town where we took the day off, Bill had taken a side trip up to a monastery, Hindu monastery, and it was a little spiritual journey that he took, that his sister and brother-in-law had been to, and he'd been asked to go up there and figure out what they needed, have the money raised for. So he went up, spent the night, came back down. And that's Rickson in the front, the orange shirt. He was the head Shuradar, the head guide for us. Carried the money to pay off the porters at the end. He was a bright, attractive, capable guy. And then in the middle is one of the monks that came down to help guide him back to find us. Another typical line of houses. Those are probably Lhasa Apso dogs on the lower left. Baskets to hold the corn. The corn is drying out in the sun on the right. And beans on the lower left, firewood, squash, upstairs, stacked up, prayer flags. And again, you always see the mountain walls coming right down. Here we are inside one of the houses. I held the camera right the roof beam to take this. This is a wealthier house with a stove in it. Most houses didn't have a stovepipe. They had the fire just going in the middle of the room with the smoke making its way out through a hole. Here we are, barley growing. We're at all the way up to 10,400 feet. And this town was the only town, one of the few towns where kids came out begging, asking, give me candy, give me candy. When Bree and I were in Nepal in the early 80s, the Lonely Planet guidebook said, don't give the kids candy, give them pennies, they can at least use it. So this time when we refused them candy, they said, okay, give me a pen, give me a pen. And obviously, come a long way since the early 80s. Just looking down, that's corn, probably corn on the lower left. Wheat, barley across the river. The river's down in that cut. Stone buildings. Now we're really getting into the Tibetan, this would be Buddhist area. These kids, it's hard to tell whether those are sort of Chinese cast-offs or real mountain clothes, but they didn't get dressed up for us. This is what they were wearing. I had brought a little spongy ball and we were playing toss and catch with them, and they really didn't understand the game. They really had never played that. I believe that's a little girl, second from the right, earrings. It is more typical with a fireplace. We were given what's called butter tea and apples. They really were being very welcoming to us, and it was really hard because we didn't trust it. Really didn't want to drink anything, eat anything from, not from our kitchen, not from what we were carrying with us. It's a little awkward, but Barbie and Mike's, Paul get us in, invited in. Om Mani Padme Hum. These stones were carved and left on the side in Mani walls. You saw them all the time. You had to pass the wall on the left for good luck. If you really needed a little spiritual help, you go around it 13 times, walk around and saying Om Mani Padme Hum. There's a little landslide. This just added to the excitement. Maybe I'm more fussy than average, but the other trekkers would stick right across here, and it was very uncomfortable for me. Yaks, we saw a water buffalo down below, but they don't survive up this high, and yaks don't survive down there. Neither one is able to go all the way from down to the trailhead up into this area. That's why they use mules. This is a Kani gate. Those are Buddha's eyes at the top to protect the village. Most villages had these, but not as fancy as this one. I can picture this. It's so beautiful. Valleys spread out here. The river's much smaller. We're at almost 12,000 feet. We're getting up very close to the Tibetan border. Typical trekker. I had really gotten down to my fighting weight to go on this trip, and then I lost another 10, 15 pounds on the trip. You burn a lot of calories. You will notice a lot of electric wires. There were little micro power plants, little micro water power plants, tiny turbines that pipe the water down, and a little generator, usually paid for by outside money.